Greetings, you're listening to the Cold Call Lawcast, the Minnesota Law School podcast featuring students from the University of Minnesota Law School, the University of St. Thomas School of Law, and the Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law. Welcome back to the Cold Call Lawcast, the podcast about law school and law. During this podcast, we're going to talk about, we're going to give a quick introduction again to all of my co-hosts. Then we're going to discuss life at law school. We have a couple rising 2Ls here, so we'd like to learn a little bit more about their experience in their first year of law school. And then we'll talk about current events that are happening in the news right now. Mostly focused on our Supreme Court nominee. But then also talking about some new tax law and some civil law that we're seeing as well. So with that, let's get started. So my name is Mitch, and I'm soon to be 1L at the University of St. Thomas School of Law. And with me is Abby.
Yes, hi, I'm Abby. I am an incoming 1L at the University of Minnesota.
I'm Hannah, 2L, U of M.
And I'm Anthony, rising 2L at Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law.
Excellent. And so if everybody can just reiterate kind of what interests you in law and kind of what are some of your interests as well.
All right, Abby again. So what interests me in law? Right now I'm mostly interested in immigration law and human rights law, potentially. I'm not sure yet, though. I'm not set on anything. But I think mostly I just want to help people interpret what's been written down as law for a long time and why it is that way, because it's kind of arbitrary sometimes, even though it's probably written for some reason or other. But
no, it's totally arbitrary.
It's all arbitrary. Who knows? Yeah.
Now, have you talked to other lawyers that have gone through law school, and have they told you, hey, you might change your mind on what law you want to do when you get there? Is that kind of why you're a little more open to?
I think so. I did talk to an immigration lawyer in Madison, and she was saying she was kind of trying to dissuade me from doing it because it's hard, emotionally, and also the laws change all the time, and depending upon what kind of immigration law you're practicing. You have to go to only very specific courts in very specific locations, which is kind of weird too. It's all procedural.
It's very strict procedural. If you don't cross your T's and dot your I's, that could be grounds for getting your whole entire application thrown out. So or starting over, and with the immigration process that could take years. So it is very important that we have a strong immigration sector.
The grammar-based immigration system.
It's fun stuff.
It's working very well.
Oh yeah, it's doing so well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also talked to a patent litigator who loves his job and had great things to say about it. So that sounded kind of fun almost. So, but yeah, I think immigration law is still what I'm most interested in.
And Hannah, what are some of your interests?
Yeah, environmental is the main, I think, sector that I'm going into, but I'm interested in all the ways that law kind of indentures and wreaks injustice on, most of the population, economic law, reproductive rights, all that good stuff.
Excellent. Anthony?
Yes, Anthony here again. I am, I've been mostly interested in family law with my upbringing. With my mother as a social worker, I've really been exposed to that type of environment for a long time, so it's always kind of spoken out to me. So being able to help families, help people who don't really have access to adequate representation has always been very big interest, and a lot of times children don't have any voices in the system, so being able to kind of extend your hand out in that area is something that would at least interest me.
Excellent. And so let's discuss a little bit about law school and the courses that our rising 2Ls here have taken. Hannah, you're a 1L full-time at the U of M. what was your experience like as a 1L and the kind of courses that you liked or didn't like, and if you have any advice for new students?
All right, the good stuff. Yeah, it was a first world hellscape, my 1L year. That's probably, the shortest description I can give. If you out there and you two that are here going into law school will probably not have quite as bad of a time as I did. I had a very bad time for a lot of reasons. A lot of my, my own failings, some external stuff that happened. But yeah, it was just a bad year, real bad year. But
was it the courses that were like really like the homework, or what, the testing, or what was the specific stuff that was so challenging?
Yeah, all the above. It's the amount of reading, the lack of sleep, it's very intense. And I had been out of school for a long time, so I was relearning to be a student, also learning in a lot of ways to be a student, because I kind of skated through. I never really developed good study skills or anything like that. And yeah, I had at least one professor who kept saying 1L year, like, whatever you've been doing so far worked, so just keep on doing whatever you did to get this far.
So insane amounts of coffee and
yeah, but that's not true. I will have to fundamentally have changed fundamentally things about how I was as a student, and will have to continue to keep doing that if I want to survive law school.
But did you do really well grade-wise, I guess, or
no? I did. I passed. I did. Okay. I did decently. I did. Worst grades that I've ever gotten in my life, but more work and probably the gap in learning. A lot of people come in with a lot of experience. I was starting from like much less for knowledge beforehand.
I have a question for you too. Did you ever consider quitting, and is there anything in particular that made you want to keep doing law school, like after that really sucky year?
Seriously consider quitting? No. Daydream, fantasize, yes, definitely. But yeah, I'm kind of a masochist, so I think there was some twisted part of me that liked the suffering.
So that's why law school is for you.
Yeah, masochists out there, you have found a home. If you like punishment, like here you are. Welcome. But not sleeping was probably one of my number one problems. That's an issue. You gotta sleep, because my brain does not work without sleep. Was there other stuff? Did you want to know, like, classes?
Yeah, which classes did you like and which one did you hate? Let's start with the ones you liked.
They were all interesting. Let's start with that. And it was actually really professor dependent, I think, more than subject dependent, because they were all, even if it's not something that I liked necessarily, like civil procedure is very, they're problematic in my, a lot of it didn't matter how like sad the class made me, I guess is what I'm saying, is like there's a lot of parts of law that are really messed up, and that's present throughout, but it was all interesting as far as classes went, and I really particularly liked, I think, contracts and international law, and constitutional law was probably my least favorite.
I'd second that as well.
Yeah. What about you, Anthony?
For anyone who's listening and thinking about joining law school here, your first years, especially if you're full-time, your curriculum is picked up for you, so you don't get to pick any fancy, interesting courses that really intrigue you. You need to get down to the bare bones foundations of law. So we're talking about classes like contracts, torts, criminal law, constitutional law, civil procedure, properties. Those are some of the main ones that you're going to be taking your first year. Now, coming in as when I did my first year, I was a part-time student, so I was working 40 hours a week, and then with Mitchell Hamlin, it is a weekend program, and it's actually quite interesting. This year was kind of an experiment with the school, so we had one weekend where we were on campus, and then the next weekend was a hybrid course, so it was online. So you'd be on campus every other weekend, and that's pretty much how you did your learning. And I took 3 courses each semester instead of the typical 4, so that's why I'm going to be graduating in 4 years if you're in a part-time program instead of 3, which I still think is kind of nice to be able to do it in 4 years. But yes, the classes were very challenging, and it made you study in a way that you haven't typically studied before. It's going to overwhelm you a lot. A lot of the courses that I had, you were assigned, it's hard because I was a weekend, so I was assigned a week's worth of homework on the weekends. But I mean, that could be, 40 or 50 cases you need to read for the next coming week. And, like Hannah was saying, you don't have a lot of time to do it. And, you need to try and read every case you can, but it's near impossible to get a really in-depth insight on all the cases. So just do the best you can. Like Hannah, I passed. I wasn't in the top third of my class ranking, but, the main point was I was able to get through law school, or my first year. It was frustrating a lot of times. I never contemplated quitting, and maybe I'm kind of following in Hannah's footsteps as well, but I really, really enjoy challenges, and I enjoy kind of being beat down and trying to learn things a different way. I've always joked with my fiance, who is in the nursing program, or she was in the nursing program, now she's a nurse, that after law school I wanted to do med school just to see how much I can challenge myself after law school and how much I can hate myself even more. But law school is doing a very good job so far making me hate myself.
You will hate yourself. You probably already do. It's okay.
But my least favorite class, I would say, is constitutional law. The cases itself are very interesting. I think the main reason why I did not like that class as much is it is a very foundational class. You need to know a lot about how our law was founded and how it affects today. But between having that dry of a course and then a professor who was very, very intellectual in the subject made it hard for me to kind of keep up with a lot of the different discussions that we had. So that was more of a challenge. But my most interesting course would probably have been either contracts or criminal law. So being able to look at Minnesota laws and see how we apply our statutes to everyday applications was very interesting to me.
So how many courses did you actually take your first semester and your second semester?
So I took 3 courses a semester.
Okay.
My first semester I took torts, criminal law, and there is a lawyering. It's a lawyering class. It's pretty much a foundations course of how to talk with clients, how to write papers. Basically, it's I don't even know how you would describe it.
We call it law and practice, like the same kind of thing.
Yeah, at St. Thomas, I think we call it lawyering skills.
Pretty
There's
much.
like a lawyering skills 1, 2, and 3.
So it's exactly what it sounds like. You learn a lot of the general basics of, advocating for clients and how to write in a legal environment. So
where to get your suit dry cleaned.
Things like that. The best golf courses in Minnesota. And then my second semester, I took contracts, constitutional law, and the lawyering part 2. So it's the same principle.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm taking lawyering skills 1 and torts.
Okay.
And so I'm basically taking 2 courses every semester and then summer classes as well.
Oh, yeah, and I did take a semester course. So Mitchell Hamlin has a Minnesota Rule 114 certification classes for mediation and arbitration. So I'm currently going to be starting my arbitration course tomorrow. But I just completed my mediation course, so now I can register on the Board of Neutrals on Minnesota and become a qualified mediator if I so choose to. Cool. So those are exciting. So there are plenty of opportunities for everyone, and mediation is a growing field. So in case anyone wants a plug on that, we could talk about that maybe later.
No, you shouldn't solve your problems.
Solving your problems without legal fees is always great.
And so, Abby, do you know the courses that you're going to take and which ones you're really excited for?
Like contracts, torts, what are the standards?
Yeah.
I know.
You're going to take contracts, torts, civil procedure, legal writing, law and practice,
Constitutional law.
Constitutional law.
Do you take that your first year or the second semester? Or the first semester?
It depends.
It's the
depends.
second
It
semester.
depends.
Yeah.
Depends on at the U. It depends on your section. They split us up into
I don't know.
four sections.
I don't know how many. We have a lot of sections. As far as we have a part-time evening,